In a village where the sun kissed the mountains each dawn, two baby girls were born on the same night. They were twins, identical in every way. Same dark eyes, same small hands, same first cry. The elders gathered around, whispering prayers and warnings. "Twins," one said, shaking her gray head. "Two souls, one face. The gods will test them." The girls were named Amara and Zara. Amara came first, by only moments, and so the family called her the elder. Zara followed, and though she looked just like her sister, something in her gaze was different, sharper, hungrier. They grew up side by side, sleeping in the same bed, wearing the same clothes. But as the years passed, the village began to notice differences. Amara was gentle. She helped the old women carry water, sang to crying children, and never raised her voice. People smiled when they saw her. "That one has a pure heart," they would say. Zara was clever. She learned faster, spoke louder, and won every game. But when she smiled, it never quite reached her eyes. She watched her sister carefully, counting every compliment Amara received, every kind word spoken about her, and with each one, something dark and bitter grew inside Zara's chest. By the time they turned 16, the village loved Amara. They trusted her. They believed in her goodness. And Zara? Zara burned with jealousy. She believed life had made a terrible mistake. "I should be the one they love," she thought. "I am smarter. I am stronger. Yet they only see her." One evening, under a blood-red sunset, Zara made a decision. If the world would not choose her, she would choose herself. And her sister, Amara, would simply have to disappear. The plan came to Zara like a whisper in the dark. It was simple, really, too simple. All she needed was the right moment, the right place, and the right lie. That moment came during the Festival of Ancestors, when the entire village gathered at the temple grounds. Amara had been chosen to light the sacred fire, a great honor. Zara stood in the crowd, watching her sister's face glow in the firelight, and the bitterness in her heart turned to ice. After the ceremony, Zara approached Amara with a soft smile. "Sister," she said sweetly, "I found something in the old forest, something beautiful. Will you come see it with me tomorrow? Just the two of us?" Amara's eyes brightened. She loved her sister, even when Zara's moods turned cold. "Of course," she said, "I'd love to." The next morning, they walked together into the forest, following a hidden path only the twins knew. The trees grew thick and tall, blocking out the sun. Birds stopped singing. The air turned heavy and strange. "Where are we going?" Amara asked, her voice uncertain. "Not far," Zara replied. Her heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. She led Amara deeper, past the old well, past the burial grounds, until they reached a place no one visited anymore, a collapsed shrine, half buried in earth and stone. "There's a tunnel here," Zara said, pointing. "I found something inside, a treasure." Amara hesitated. The tunnel looked dark and dangerous, but she trusted her sister. She always had. So she stepped inside, and the moment Amara disappeared into the shadows, Zara moved. She grabbed a heavy stone and with all her strength rolled it across the tunnel's entrance, then another and another. Inside, Amara screamed, but no one was there to hear.
Amara pounded against the stones, her fists bruising, her voice cracking. "Zara! Zara, please, let me out!" Outside, Zara stood frozen for a moment, listening to her sister's cries. Her hands trembled, her stomach twisted. For one brief second, doubt flickered in her mind. Then she thought of the village, the praise, the attention, the life that should have been hers. She turned and walked away. By the time Zara returned to the village, her face was streaked with tears, fake ones carefully placed. She stumbled into the square, gasping, clutching her chest. "Help!" she cried. "Please, someone help! My sister, she's gone!" The villagers rushed toward her. "What happened?" the elder asked, gripping Zara's shoulders. "We went to the forest," Zara sobbed, "to pick flowers for Mother, but Amara, she wandered off. I called and called, but she didn't answer. I searched everywhere. She's gone. She's just gone." The elder's face darkened. The forest was dangerous. People had disappeared there before. "We'll send a search party, child. Don't worry, child. We'll find her." But they didn't. Days passed, then weeks. The search parties found nothing. No footprints, no torn cloth, no sign of Amara at all. It was as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The village mourned. They held a ceremony in Amara's honor, believing she had been taken by spirits or wild animals. Zara stood among them, dressed in black, her face sorrowful. People hugged her. "You must be so brave, so strong." And Zara, she nodded and cried on cue. Inside, she smiled. "Now," she thought, "now the life I deserve begins." Beneath the earth, Amara lay in total darkness. She had screamed until her throat bled. She had clawed at the stones until her fingers were raw. But no one came. The tunnel was deep, forgotten, sealed by her sister's cruelty. Hours became days. Hunger gnawed at her belly. Thirst cracked her lips. She drifted in and out of consciousness, dreaming of light, of water, of her mother's face. "Why?" she whispered into the void. "Why did you do this, Zara?" But the darkness had no answer. On the third day, or was it the fourth, Amara heard something, a faint scratching sound. At first, she thought it was her mind breaking, but then she heard it again, closer. Suddenly, a small gap appeared between two stones. Fresh air rushed in. Amara gasped, crawling toward it, her body weak and trembling. Through the gap, she saw eyes, not human eyes, animal eyes, golden and calm. A fox. The creature stared at her for a long moment, then began digging. Its paws moved quickly, loosening earth and stone. Amara didn't understand. Foxes didn't rescue people, but this one did, as if it knew, as if it had been sent. Hours later, the gap was wide enough. Amara squeezed through, collapsing onto the forest floor. The fox watched her, then turned and disappeared into the trees. Amara lay there, gasping, her body broken but alive. She looked up at the sky, gray and cold, but beautiful. She was free. But freedom came with a terrible realization. Her sister had tried to kill her. Her own twin, the person she had loved most in the world, had buried her alive and left her to die. And now, Zara was back in the village, living Amara's life. Amara finally decided it was time. She could not hide forever. The village deserved the truth, and she deserved her life back. She cleaned herself as best as she could, washing in the stream and mending her torn clothes. She looked thin, pale, haunted, but alive. That would have to be enough. On a gray morning, Amara walked out of the forest and toward the village. Her heart pounded with every step. What would they say? Would they believe her? Or would Zara twist the story once more? She reached the edge of the square just as the sun broke through the clouds. People were going about their morning routines, carrying baskets, tending animals, chatting by the well. Then someone saw her. A woman gasped, dropping her water jug. It shattered on the ground. "Amara?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Others turned. Faces went white. Mouths fell open. "It can't be," someone said. "She's dead." "No," another whispered. "She's a ghost." Amara stood still, letting them stare. "I'm not a ghost," she said quietly. Her voice was weak but steady. "I'm alive." The crowd parted as the village elder pushed through. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes wide with shock. "Amara, is it truly you?" "Yes," she said, "it's me." He studied her face, her eyes, the scars on her hands. Slowly, disbelief turned to recognition. "Where have you been?" he asked. "We thought you were lost, dead." Amara took a breath. "I was buried," she said, "in the old shrine, by someone who wanted me gone." A heavy silence fell over the square. People exchanged nervous glances. The elder's face darkened. Buried? By whom? Amara's gaze shifted across the crowd and locked onto a familiar face. Zara stood frozen at the edge of the square, her skin pale as snow, her eyes wide with terror. Their eyes met, and in that moment the truth hung in the air like a blade about to fall. Zara's mind screamed at her to run, to deny, to lie, but her body wouldn't move. She stood there, rooted in place, staring at the sister she had left for dead. "No," she thought, "this isn't happening. She's dead. She has to be dead." But Amara was very much alive. To say it, even after everything, part of her still loved the girl Zara had once been. But the truth could no longer be hidden. "My sister," she said softly. "Zara." Gasps erupted from the crowd. People turned toward Zara, their faces twisted in shock and disbelief. "No!" Zara's voice cracked as she finally found her words. "I didn't. I swear I didn't. She's confused. She's been through something terrible, but it wasn't me." The elder looked between the two sisters, his brow furrowed. They looked identical, spoke with the same voice. How could he know who was telling the truth? "Amara was always kind," an old woman said from the crowd. "She never lied." "But Zara searched for her," another argued. "Was she?" Someone else whispered. "Or was she acting?" The doubt spread like wildfire. People began murmuring, choosing sides, questioning everything they thought they knew. Zara felt the ground slipping beneath her. "Please," she begged, "you know me. You've known me my whole life." "We thought we did," the elder said quietly. His eyes were sad but resolute. "But now I am not sure."
The elder raised his hand, silencing the crowd. "This is a serious accusation," he said. "We cannot act on words alone. There must be proof." Zara's hope flickered. Proof. There is no proof. But Amara stepped forward. "Take me to the shrine," she said. "I'll show you where I was buried. The stones are still there, moved aside, and inside you'll find the marks where I scratched at the walls, trying to escape." The elder nodded slowly. "Then we will go, now." A group formed quickly. The elder, several strong men, and both sisters. The crowd followed at a distance, whispering and watching. It felt like a procession toward judgment. They walked in tense silence through the forest. Zara's heart raced. She considered running, disappearing into the trees. But where would she go? She had no allies beyond the village, no life except the one she had stolen. When they reached the shrine, Amara pointed. "There," she said, "that tunnel, that's where she left me." The men approached cautiously. The stones had indeed been moved, recently by the look of it. They pulled more away, widening the entrance, and one by one they crawled inside with torches. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, one of them emerged, his face grim. He held up his hand, showing the elder. His palm was streaked with dried blood. Scratch marks all over the walls, and this, He held out a torn piece of cloth, part of Amara's dress. The elder's expression hardened. He turned to Zara. "Explain this." Zara opened her mouth, but no words came. Her mind raced, searching for a lie, an excuse, anything. But there was nothing left to say. I didn't mean, I just wanted." "You wanted her life," Amara said quietly. "You wanted everything I had, so you tried to take it." Zara's face crumpled. The mask finally fell. "Yes, I wanted it, because it should have been mine. I was smarter, stronger, better, but they only ever saw you, perfect, gentle Amara." The confession hung in the air like poison. The crowd stood frozen, horrified. Even those who doubted Amara now stared at Zara with disbelief and disgust. "You tried to murder your own sister," the elder said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Out of jealousy, out of pride." Zara's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the ground, sobbing. "I didn't want to. I couldn't stand it anymore, watching everyone love her, watching her have everything." "She had nothing you didn't have, except a kind heart, and that, Zara, cannot be stolen." The men moved forward, lifting Zara to her feet. She didn't resist. She was hollow now, emptied of lies and excuses. All that remained was the raw truth of what she had done. "What will happen to her?" someone in the crowd asked. The elder looked at Amara. "You are the one wronged. What do you believe is just?" All eyes turned to Amara. This was her moment. She could demand punishment, exile, even death. Zara had tried to kill her. No one would question vengeance. But Amara looked at her sister, broken, shaking, lost, and felt something unexpected. Pity. Not forgiveness, not yet, perhaps not ever, but pity. "She will face the consequences of her actions," Amara said quietly. "But I will not become like her. I will not let hatred poison me the way it poisoned her." The elder nodded. "Then it is decided. Zara will be cast out from the village. She will live in exile, alone, with only her guilt as a companion. Perhaps in time she will find a way to atone, but that is her burden to carry." Zara looked at Amara one last time. There was no anger left in her, only emptiness. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Amara said nothing. And so Zara was led away, out of the village, into the wilderness. The crowd watched her go, silent and solemn.
The village slowly returned to normal, but Amara's life was forever changed. People treated her with a strange mix of reverence and discomfort. She was a survivor, yes, but also a living reminder of something dark and broken. Her parents welcomed her home with tears and relief, but even they didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone who was betrayed by their own twin? How do you heal a wound that deep? Amara tried to settle back into her old routines, but everything felt different. She couldn't walk past the forest without feeling the weight of the earth pressing down on her. She couldn't look in the mirror without seeing Zara's face staring back. One evening, the old merchant who had heard her cries visited her. He sat across from her, his eyes kind but knowing. "You've been through something terrible," he said, "but you survived. That means something." "Does it?" Amara asked quietly. "I feel empty, like part of me is still buried in that tunnel." The merchant nodded. "That's because you've learned a hard truth, that even those we love can hurt us, that trust can be broken. But here's the other truth, child. You chose kindness when you could have chosen cruelty. You chose truth when lies would have been easier. That is the real victory."
Amara looked at him, her eyes wet with unshed tears. "But it doesn't feel like victory." "Not yet," he said, "but it will. Time doesn't erase pain, but it does teach us how to carry it." He stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Hatred will find your sister wherever she goes. It always does. But you're free of it. And that, Amara, is the greatest gift you could have given yourself." After he left, Amara sat alone in the quiet. She thought of Zara, wandering somewhere in the wilderness, alone with her choices. And for the first time since crawling out of that tunnel, Amara felt something other than pain. She felt peace. Months passed. The seasons changed. The village moved on, as villages do, weaving Amara's story into their collective memory, a tale told to children as a warning about envy and betrayal. But Amara herself tried not to live in the past. She worked in the fields, helped at the temple, and slowly rebuilt her sense of self. People began to see her not as a victim, but as someone who had faced darkness and walked back into the light. One day, a young man from a neighboring village came to visit. His name was Kale, and he had heard Amara's story. But unlike others, he didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her with respect. "I came to meet the girl who survived," he said simply. Amara smiled, a real smile. "And what do you think now that you have?" "I think," Kale said, "that survival is only the beginning. The question is, what will you do with the life you reclaimed?" It was a question Amara had been asking herself, and slowly an answer had begun to form. She wanted to help others, those who had been betrayed, hurt, abandoned. She wanted to be a voice for the voiceless, a hand reaching down into the dark. Over time, Amara became known not just for her story, but for her work. She became a counselor, a healer of sorts, not of bodies, but of hearts. People came to her with their pain, and she listened, she understood, because she had been there, in the deepest, darkest place, and she had found her way out. Meanwhile, far from the village, Zara wandered. She lived in forests, slept in caves, ate whatever she could find. The wilderness was unforgiving, and so was her conscience. Every night she saw Amara's face. Every day she heard her sister's screams echoing in her mind. There was no escape from guilt, no outrunning the past.
One cold evening, as Amara sat by the fire in her small home, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a hooded figure standing in the rain, thin, trembling, barely recognizable. But Amara knew. "Amara," she whispered. Her sister pulled back her hood. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow. She looked like a ghost of the girl she used to be. "I don't expect forgiveness," Zara said, her voice cracking. "I don't deserve it, but I had to come. I had to tell you. I'm sorry, truly, for everything." Amara stood in the doorway, emotions crashing inside her. Part of her wanted to slam the door, to send Zara back into the darkness she had created. But another part, the part that had survived, that had chosen kindness, wouldn't let her. "Come inside," Amara said quietly. Zara hesitated, disbelief flickering across her face. "Why?" "Because," Amara said, "I'm not you." They sat by the fire in silence. Zara wrapped a blanket around herself, shivering. Amara made tea, her hands steady despite the storm of feelings inside her. Finally, Zara spoke. "I've spent every day wishing I could undo it, wishing I could go back and choose differently. But I can't, and I have to live with that." "Yes," Amara said, "you do." "Do you hate me?" Zara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Amara considered the question. Did she? Once, maybe, in those first days when rage and betrayal burned white-hot in her chest. But now? No,
Amara said. "I don't hate you, but I don't trust you either, and I don't know if I ever will." Zara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "That's more than I deserve." They sat together through the night, not as sisters, but as two people bound by history and blood. Healing wouldn't come quickly. Perhaps it wouldn't come at all. But in that moment, there was something fragile and new, a possibility, not of forgetting, but of understanding. Zara didn't stay long. She knew she couldn't. The village would never accept her, and Amara needed space to continue healing. But before she left, the two sisters stood facing each other one last time. "I'll never stop being sorry," Zara said. "I know, but sorry doesn't erase what happened. It just acknowledges it." Zara nodded. "What will you do now?" "Live," Amara said simply. "That's all I can do. Live the life I was meant to have." "And me?" "That's for you to decide. You can keep running from your guilt, or you can find a way to make something good out of all this pain. But that's your choice, Zara, not mine." Zara looked at her sister, strong, steady, whole, and felt the full weight of what she had almost destroyed. "Goodbye, Amara. Goodbye." Zara turned and walked back into the rain, back into the unknown. This time she wasn't running, she was searching, for redemption maybe, or at least for a way to live with herself. Amara watched her go, then closed the door. She returned to the fire, to the warmth, to the life she had built from the ashes of her darkest moment. Outside, the rain washed the earth clean. Inside, Amara sat in the glow of the flames and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for Zara, not for the past, but for herself, for tomorrow, for all the days that lay ahead, free from the weight of betrayal and filled instead with purpose. She had survived, and now she would thrive. Years passed. Amara's name became known beyond the village. People traveled from distant places to seek her counsel, to hear her story, to find comfort in her presence. She never spoke of herself as a hero. She was simply someone who had endured, and in enduring had learned. She married Kael, the young man who had seen her for who she truly was. Together, they built a life rooted in honesty, compassion, and quiet strength. They had children. 2 daughters, not twins, but close in age. Amara raised them with care, teaching them the value of kindness, but also the importance of boundaries. Love, she told them, should never mean losing yourself. The story of the twin sisters became legend. Elders told it to children, and children told it to their own. It was a tale of envy and betrayal, yes, but also of survival, truth, and the enduring power of integrity. As for Zara, no one knew exactly what became of her. Some said she died alone in the wilderness, consumed by guilt. Others whispered that she found a distant village where no one knew her name and started over, living quietly, humbly, never speaking of her past. Amara preferred to believe the latter, not because Zara deserved peace, but because Amara herself needed to believe that people could change, that even the darkest soul might find a sliver of light. One evening, as Amara sat on her porch watching the sunset, her eldest daughter climbed into her lap. "Mama," the girl asked, "do you ever think about your sister?" Amara stroked her daughter's hair, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not as much as I used to." "Do you miss her?" Amara paused. Did she? Not the sister who had betrayed her, but the sister from childhood, the one who had laughed and played and shared secrets under the stars. That sister, maybe, the one who had existed before envy poisoned everything. "I miss who she could have been," Amara said softly. Her daughter nodded, not fully understanding, but sensing the weight of the answer. One night, Amara had a dream. She was standing at the edge of the same forest where everything had changed. The trees whispered in the wind, and the air smelled of earth and rain. And there, in the shadows, stood Zara. She looked different, older, quieter, somehow lighter. The bitterness was gone from her eyes. She didn't speak, but she nodded once, slowly, a gesture of acknowledgement, of release. Amara nodded back. And then Zara turned and walked into the forest, fading like mist in the morning sun. When Amara woke, her cheeks were wet, but she wasn't sad. She felt unburdened, as if some invisible thread that had tethered her to the past had finally snapped. She rose and stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air. The village was quiet, bathed in moonlight. Somewhere an owl called. Somewhere life continued, as it always did. Amara smiled. She had spent so long surviving that she had almost forgotten what it meant to simply live. But now, standing under the stars, she felt it fully. The weight of the past no longer crushed her. It had become part of her story, yes, but not the whole story. She was more than what had been done to her. She was more than her pain. She was Amara, and she was free.
As the years went on, Amara became an elder herself. Her hair turned silver, her face lined with the marks of time, but her eyes remained bright and kind. She was beloved, not out of pity or fascination, but because of the wisdom she carried and the grace with which she moved through the world. Children would sit at her feet, begging for stories, and sometimes, when the moment felt right, she would tell them hers, not to frighten them, but to teach them. Once, she would say, there were two sisters who looked exactly alike, but inside they were very different. One learned that love cannot be stolen, and the other learned that envy destroys everything it touches. The children would listen, wide-eyed and solemn. "Which sister were you?" one brave child once asked. Amara smiled. "I was the one who learned that survival is not the end of the story, it's the beginning." And that, she believed, was the truest lesson of all. Not that betrayal doesn't hurt, it does. Not that forgiveness is easy, it isn't. But that even in the deepest darkness, even when buried alive by those you love, you can still find a way to rise. You can still choose who you become. And that choice, more than anything, defines your destiny. On the night of Amara's final breath, she lay surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, and the people who had loved her. The room was warm, filled with soft candlelight and quiet prayers. She closed her eyes and saw her life unfold, not as a story of suffering, but as one of triumph. Not because she had defeated her sister, but because she had refused to let hatred win. She thought of Zara one last time, and in that final moment, she whispered a truth she had carried for decades. "I forgive you." Not for Zara's sake, for her own. Because forgiveness, Amara had learned, was not about forgetting. It was about releasing the past's grip on the present. It was about choosing peace over poison. And with that, Amara let go. Her breath stilled, her heart quieted, and the people who loved her wept, but they also smiled, because they knew Amara's story didn't end in that tunnel buried in darkness. It ended here, in light, in love, in the legacy of a woman who had been broken but never defeated. The village would remember her for generations, and whenever someone spoke of envy, of betrayal, of the terrible things people do to each other, they would also speak of Amara, the girl who was buried alive, the woman who clawed her way back into the light, the soul who chose kindness even when cruelty had tried to destroy her. And in that way, Amara's truth became eternal.
because destiny, in the end, does not belong to those who steal and scheme. It belongs to those who endure, who rise, and who refuse to let darkness have the final word.